In this lecture, I will be describing the decimal representation of real numbers. We will discuss the proof in details. So let us see. In the beginning, what we will do is that we will just take any positive real number x and describe what is meant by the decimal expansion of such a real number, and then later on extend the result to arbitrary real numbers. So our main result is the following, that if I take any positive real number x, then corresponding to it, I will be able to get certain number of non-negative integers which will satisfy some properties. So precisely speaking, I want to say that I will get a sequence of non-negative integers. So what does this mean? This means that corresponding to 0, I will get a number, non-negative integer n0. Corresponding to 1, I will get a non-negative integer n1. Corresponding to 2, I will get a non-negative integer n2, and so on. So corresponding to every 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So corresponding to every non-negative integer, I will be able to get a non-negative integer. This is what is meant by saying that I am going to get a sequence of non-negative integers. What are the properties that these integers would have apart from being non-negative? Are, first of all, that your n1, n2, etc., all these numbers will actually be integers between 0 and 9. So they will take only these 10 values. N0 could take any non-negative value, but n1, n2 onwards, they will take only these 10 values between 0 and 9. Also, this sequence will not have an infinite string of nines at the end. That means that you will not get some nk, so that from nk plus 1 onwards, all the nj's will be equal to 9. This is what we will not get. So our result is saying that any positive real number x will correspond to such a sequence of non-negative integers, and in that case we will say that the decimal expansion of this positive real number x is n0, point, n1, n2, etc., where point will mean the decimal point. So that means that n0 is actually giving you the integral part of x, and n1, n2 are giving you the fractional parts of x, which get closer and closer to x under certain summation, which will become clear as we go through the proof. Okay, so we start from the very beginning. Suppose I have any positive real number x, then it is possible to get a unique n0 non-negative integer, so that n0 is less than or equal to x is less than n0 plus 1. This result we proved in the last lecture, and what is meant by this is that n0 is your integral part of x. Okay, so we rename n0 as a0 for our convenience with notation later on. So what is this inequality telling you? That a0 is less than or equal to x is less than a0 plus 1. Okay, now once you have your a0 in hand, you look at the number 10 times x minus a0. So this number is again a non-negative real number. It could be 0, but for this non-negative real number, you will again be able to find a non-negative integer, so that n1 is less than or equal to 10 times x minus a naught is less than n1 plus 1. So what you are able to find is the integral part of the non-negative real number 10 times x minus a naught. So what you do is that you just divide this inequality by 10. So you get n1 divided by 10 is less than or equal to x minus a naught is less than n1 plus 1 divided by 10. So this increment n1 by 10 to a naught will give you a new rational number which you call as a1. So a1 is equal to a0 plus n1 by 10. So just stare at this inequality. What do you get? You get a0 plus n1 by 10 is less than or equal to x is less than a0 plus n1 by 10 plus 1 by 10. So that is what we have written down here. So calling a0 plus n1 by 10 by a1, we get the inequality a1 less than or equal to x less than a1 plus 1 by 10. And also observe that this rational number a1 is actually equal to n0 plus n1 by 10. So it has a form as some fraction where the denominator is 10. It's very easy to see. It will be just 10 n0 plus n1 divided by 10. Similarly, our a0 was a rational number whose one form as a fraction was such that the denominator was 1, which is 10 to the power 0. Okay, so we have at least got n0 and n1 in hand. And also we will see that n1 is going to be one of those 0, 1, 2, etc. 9. So how are we going to justify that? Suppose your n1 is not between 0 and 9, then it is going to look like some 10 plus r, where your r is any non-negative integer. Let us just go back once and let me just underline this fact again here, that your x minus a naught is greater than equal to 0, right? So 10 times x minus a naught is also greater than equal to 0. Therefore, the n1 which you have got is a non-negative integer. So at least it is n1 is greater than equal to 0 and it is a integer, so it can take any value 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. And now you wish to just give the restriction that it will not take any random value, it will take one of these 10 values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. So to prove that it will take only these values, we assume to the contrary that n1 is not equal to one of these, so it has to be greater than 9. So it would look like 10 plus something, that something being a non-negative integer, right? So it will be 10, 11, 12 or something like that. So if this is true, then again recall what was a1. A1 was equal to n0 plus n1 divided by 10. So that becomes n0 plus 1 plus r by 10. And we have already seen that a1 is less than or equal to x. Therefore, what follows is that n0 plus 1 is less than or equal to x minus r by 10. And since r by 10 is greater than equal to 0, x minus r by 10 will be less than or equal to x. So you have got that n0 plus 1 is less than or equal to x, which is a contradiction since your choice of n0 was such that n0 is less than or equal to x and x is less than n0 plus 1. So since we arrive to this contradiction that n0 plus 1 becomes less than or equal to x, if we assume that n1 is an integer greater than 9, so we can conclude that n1 cannot be greater than 9. So n1 is an integer between 0 and 9. Okay, so this was our first step. Now suppose we have got n0 and n1 in hand. Let us just see how to construct n2. So again what you do is you look at x minus a1. So x minus a1 is a non-negative real number because x is greater than equal to a1. So x minus a1 is greater than equal to 0. So multiply that by 10 squared, you get a non-negative real number. So again by our result which we had proved in the last lecture, we will be able to get a non-negative integer n2 so that n2 is less than or equal to 10 squared times x minus a1 is less than n2 plus 1. So what is the meaning of that? That you are looking at the integral part of 10 squared times x minus a1. Now again, as before, you just divide this inequality by 10 squared. So you will get what? N2 divided by 10 squared is less than or equal to x minus a1 is less than N2 plus 1 divided by 10 squared. Okay. So what do we do now? We just give a name to a1 plus n2 divided by 10 squared. So let us call that a2. Then this inequality is telling you, you just add a1 throughout. You will get a2 is less than or equal to x is less than a2 plus 1 by 10 squared. Okay. And not only that, a2 is just addition of n2 by 10 squared to a1. So it is actually equal to n0 plus n1 by 10 plus n2 by 10 squared. So it has a form as a fraction where the denominator will be 10 square. So this we will keep in mind. It will help us later on. Okay. So this is the procedure which you are going to follow. So I would like to say uh, slightly carelessly that and so on, you will be able to get all the n1, n2, n3 and so on. So that and so on is precisely speaking proof by induction. So what do you do is that you assume that uh, your nj's which you get in hand will satisfy certain properties, and using that you will prove the next you will get the next non-negative integer. So before that we have not completed all the properties which n2 and a2 should satisfy. uh, this property also, let us check it. The proof is going to be the same, that n2 is going to be a non-negative integer between 0 and 9. So again the proof is similar, that assume that it is not true. So then n2 would look like 10 plus r for some non-negative integer r. So n2 will be some 10, 11, 12, something like that. Then what is a2? a2 was equal to a1 plus n2 divided by 10 square, right? So a2 was equal to a1 plus n2 by 10 square. So if you plug in that here, what will you get? You will get a1 plus 1 by 10 plus r by 10 squared. Now what you do is you go one step back again, and instead of a1 you write a0 plus n1 by 10. So what do you get? You get a0 plus n1 plus 1 divided by 10 plus r by 10 squared. So this is the expression for a2, and you know that a2 is less than or equal to x. Therefore, n1 plus 1 divided by 10, this number is going to be less than or equal to x minus a naught minus r by 10 squared. Since r by 10 squared is non-negative, right? So therefore, this is going to be less than or equal to x minus a naught. So again, you have reached a contradiction to the choice of n1. Recall, what was your choice of n1? It was the number which satisfied this property, that 10 times x minus a naught is less than n1 plus 1. But if you assume that your a2 is some integer of the form 10, 11, 12, etc., then you get that n1 plus 1 is less than or equal to 10 times x minus a naught. So you arrive at a contradiction to the choice of n1. So this contradiction is because you assume this, therefore this statement is false. That is, n2 cannot be an integer greater than 9. So the values of n2 have to be any one of 0, 1, 2, etc. till 9. Okay, so what I said, that proof, we will do the proof by induction. So I'm just listing out what all we have. Suppose we have got this. What have we got? That we have got non-negative integers n0, n1, etc., nk minus 1. And you have also got non-negative rational numbers a0, a1, etc., ak minus 1, which are satisfying these properties. So notice I am just writing down the properties by which we had done the first three stages. That first of all, your nj will be less than or equal to 10 to the power j times x minus aj minus 1 less than nj plus 1 for all j between 0 and k minus 1, or all integers between 0 and k minus 1. Secondly, your recursive definition is that aj is equal to aj minus 1 plus nj divided by 10 to the power j, and aj satisfies the property that aj is less than or equal to x is less than aj plus 1 by 10 to the power j. Not only that, these non-negative integers n0, n1, etc., nk minus 1 have an extra property that of these n1, n2, etc., nk minus 1 are all non-negative integers between 0 and 9, right? So we assume that we have constructed these numbers till the k minus 1th stage. So you have reached the k minus 1th decimal place in that sense. Assuming this, you can get the next decimal place, that is you want nk and ak. The proof is similar to what you have done till now, and just as an observation here I want to just stress this fact that your aj, which is recursively defined like this, so recall what was our definition. According to that, aj will actually look like n0 plus n1 by 10 plus n2 by 10 squared plus n3 by 10 cube plus etc. till nj by 10 to the power j. So if you take the common denominator 10 to the power j, you will get some numerator which will be a non-negative integer. It could be very well 0. So you can write each aj as pj divided by 10 to the power j, where pj is some non-negative integer. This is an observation which will be useful. Okay, so suppose you have these numbers in hand. So the next number is obtained in a similar fashion, that you just look at the non-negative real number x minus ak minus 1. X minus ak minus 1 is greater than equal to 0 by this relation which we have, and therefore if you multiply it by 10 to the power k, you still have a non-negative real number. Let nk be the unique non-negative integer so that nk is less than or equal to 10 to the power k times x minus ak minus 1, and that number is less than nk plus 1. So once you have got this, you just divide by 10 to the power k, then you will get this inequality, and the recursive definition will be that ak is equal to ak minus 1 plus nk divided by 10 to the power k. So if you again look at this inequality, it is familiar ground now, I hope, that you just add by ak minus 1 on all the sides, then you will get that ak is less than or equal to x is less than ak plus 1 by 10 to the power k. So this you get easily, and not only that, you will also get the rest of the properties. That is uh, here you will have your ak is actually n0 plus n1 by 10 plus etc. plus n2 by 10 squared plus etc. till nk by 10 to the power k. So one form of the rational number ak will be such that the denominator will be 10 to the power k. Okay, and again you assume that nk, if nk is uh, an integer greater than 9, then you will see that that will lead to a contradiction. So let us see what will happen, that if your nk is 10 plus r, where r is some non-negative integer, then by the definition of ak, ak is equal to ak minus 1 plus nk divided by 10 to the power k. So if you just divide this by 10 to the power k, you will get 1 by 10 to the power k minus 1 plus r divided by 10 to the power k. Again, what you do, as you did in the case of n2, instead of ak minus 1, you write it as ak minus 2 plus nk minus 1 divided by 10 to the power k minus 1. So what do you get? You get your ak is equal to ak minus 2 plus nk minus 1 plus 1 divided by 10 to the power k minus 1 plus r divided by 10 to the power k. And we know that ak is less than or equal to x. We have seen that just now. So what do you get? You get that this number x minus ak minus 2 minus r divided by 10 to the power k, so all this you are taking on the right hand side, that is going to be greater than equal to nk minus 1 plus 1 divided by 10 to the power k minus 1. And obviously, since ak minus 2 is non-negative and r divided by 10 to the power k is non-negative, so what do we get? In fact, your only this much is sufficient. You will get that x minus ak minus 2 minus r divided by 10 to the power k is going to be less than or equal to x minus ak minus 2. So again you are getting that nk minus 1 plus 1 is less than or equal to 10 to the power k minus 1 times x minus ak minus 2. But this is contrary to our hypothesis that your j's from 0 to k minus 1, for j from 0 to k minus 1, your nj's are chosen to be like this. That nj plus 1 has to be strictly greater than 10 to the power j times x minus aj minus 1. So in particular, nk minus 1 plus 1 has to be strictly greater than 10 to the power k minus 1 times x minus ak minus 2. So by our assumption that nk is greater than 9, we get a contradiction to the choice, and hence nk cannot be greater than 9. Therefore, nk is a non-negative integer between 0 and 9. So what are you obtaining from this? That you saw how to get n1, n0, n1 and n2. Also, you assume that you have got n0, n1, n2 till nk minus 1 satisfying your required properties. Then you will be able to get nk satisfying your required property. So you have got a sequence of non-negative integers, so that n1, n2, etc., they will all lie between 0 and 9. So at least this much is true. Now we have to also show that this sequence is not going to end in an infinite string of nines. To prove that, I'm going to require a certain so this is what I have listed it out here, that inductively we will get a sequence like this, so that all these properties are satisfied, and aj is equal to will look like this, because aj is actually n0 plus n1 by 10 plus etc. till plus nj by 10 to the power j. So take the common denominator 10 to the power j, you will get something as a numerator. That something will be either 0 or a positive integer. Okay, and the decimal expansion is written like this. So what we are left out with is that we have not yet proved that there is no infinite string of nines at the end, for which I was going to just say that I am going to request that you believe a little bit uh, about the next result. So this result, actually you have seen series in your high school, you have at least done some problems using series, but you have not discussed their properties etc. theoretically. But for the time being, I'm going to request that you believe this particular series. So what does this mean? This means that you're just going on adding. You take your x between 0 and 1, suppose, and then you keep on adding 1 plus x squared plus x cubed plus etc. as many times as you wish. So that means from till infinity, right? So infinity times you add. So this is an infinite sum, or which is called a series. So I want to say that if x is between 0 and 1, then this infinite addition is actually going to give you a number, real number. So the I'm not going into the proof of that. What I have done is that I've shown that if I take only finitely many, say till the n plus one, nth order, nth power of x, then what I get is 1 plus x squared till x to the power n. This can easily be shown to be this fraction 1 minus x to the power n plus 1 divided by 1 minus x. How can you see this? You just multiply both sides by 1 minus x. Then on the right hand side you will get 1 minus x to the power n plus 1, and on the left hand side you notice that if you multiply by 1 you will just get 1 plus x squared plus etc plus x to the power n, and then you will have to subtract by multiplying by x. So you will get minus x squared minus x cube etc till minus x to the power n plus 1. So all the terms will cancel out except the uh, term 1 and minus xn plus 1. So this equality is true for any positive integer. Now philosophically speaking, what is actually happening here is that x is a smaller number than 1. So if you just multiply this by x again, you will get x squared is less than x, and then again multiply by x, you will get x cube is less than x, and so on. So what you are getting is this x to the power n plus 1. This number, as you make n larger and larger, it goes towards 0. So precisely speaking, we say that limit n tending to infinity x to the power n is 0. So that is the reason why this series is expressed as 1 by 1 minus x. So in a later lecture we will explain this uh, in more details, but for the time being you assume that this is true. This is called geometric series. Uh, the complete result is not this, but for us this is sufficient that if x is between 0 and 1, then summation n equal to 0 to infinity x to the power n is equal to 1 by 1 minus x. So in this relation, if you put x equal to 1 by 10, then you know that you will get a real number. And what is that real number going to be? Just plug in 1 by 10 here. So it will be equal to 1 by 1 minus 1 by 10. So that is just, you can easily see, equal to 10 by 9. So this is the result which I am going to use, which will tell you very easily that there will be no infinite string of 9 at the end. So let us see. So our favorite style of proving is that whatever statement we want to prove, we assume that that is false, and then take the negative of that statement, show that that is going to lead to a contradiction, and hence our assumption was wrong. Therefore the statement which we want to prove is true. So following that philosophy again here, suppose I have this x greater than 0, which with this was the number with which we had started, and suppose if possible x can be expressed as n0 point n1 n2 etc nk, and then 9999 so on. Okay, so here one thing you should note, that there may be some nines between n1 and nk also. N0 could also be 9, but that is not the point. The point is that after the k plus 1th decimal place, all the digits are going to be 9. Suppose that you get such a situation. So here there may be some 9s, but they are not consecutively all 9s. Okay. So we have this number. So what does this number mean actually? By our construction, it is actually n0 plus n1 by 10 plus n2 by 10 squared plus etc plus nk by 10 to the power k plus nk plus 1, so that becomes 9. So plus 9 by 10 to the power k plus 1 plus 9 by 10 to the power k plus 2 plus 9 by 10 to the power k plus 3 and so on. So that is written in a succinct form like this: summation j is equal to 0 to infinity 9 by 10 to the power k plus 1 plus j. So this first part, n0 plus n1 by 10 plus etc plus nk by 10 to the power k, that is what? That is just simply ak, our previous notation. And from this series, This also I request you to believe for the time being. Every term of this series is positive, so you can take out the common factor. So what is the common factor here? You notice it is just n divided by 10 to the power k plus 1. If you take out the common factor, the series left out is summation j is equal to 0 to infinity 1 by 10 to the power j. And this we saw just now that that is equal to 10 by 9. So you just write down that value here. What do you get? Ak plus 9 divided by 10 to the power k plus 1 into 10 by 9. So you get ak plus 1 by 10 to the power k. So what have you got? That if x is expressible like this as an infinite string of 9s after the k plus 1th place, then x is actually equal to ak plus 1 by 10 to the power k. But you have seen that your ak is satisfy the property that ak less than or equal to x strictly less than ak plus 1 by 10 to the power k. This we have seen. So therefore we are arriving at a contradiction, and the contradiction is because we are assuming this. Therefore our result is that the decimal expansion of a positive real number cannot have an infinite string of 9s at the end. So we have proved our main result that for a positive real number x, we are able to get such a decimal expansion. Okay. One more interesting thing here is that x is actually the supremum of all the AKs. You realize that AK is less than or equal to x for all k. Therefore, x is an upper bound of this set. That much is very much true. Now you want to say that it is the least upper bound. So if you decrease by x by any positive quantity, then it will no longer remain an upper bound. Here also, I am requesting some indulgence on your part. I am assuming that you know at least, you have at least the working knowledge of the function log. Log means log to the base e here. So what I want to show is that if I look at x minus epsilon, for any epsilon positive, then x minus epsilon will no longer be an upper bound of this set. For that, I'm going to do some simple calculation here, provided I know what log is. So look at log 10. Log function is such that it is an monotonically increasing function. We will discuss the properties, the definition of log at a later stage in full details. In fact, we will have to wait for some time before that. We need to know some little bit of series, or we have to know some integration before giving the definition of log. But as I said, you have some working knowledge of this. So you have log 1 is 0, and then it keeps on increasing, and so therefore log 10 is going to be a positive number. That much is at least all right. So look at the number log 10 and log 1 by epsilon. So by Archimedean property, you will be able to get a positive integer so that p times log 10 is greater than log of 1 by epsilon. So that means log of 10 to the power p is greater than log of 1 by epsilon. So now you apply exponential on both sides, which is the inverse of log, so that you get 10 to the power p is greater than 1 by epsilon. Once you have this, everything else is very simple. That is, you have epsilon is greater than 1 by 10 to the power p. So that means if you multiply by 10, the numerator and denominator both, you will get 10 divided by 10 to the power p plus 1. And you know that np plus 1 is a non-negative integer which is less than or equal to 9. So np plus 1 is going to be less than or equal to 10. So you get 10 divided by 10 to the power p plus 1 is greater than equal to this quantity, np plus 1 divided by 10 to the power p plus 1. Therefore, x minus epsilon will be x minus this, right? And what is your x? X is less than ap plus 1 plus 1 by 10 to the power p plus 1. So x minus this quantity is going to be less than ap plus 1 plus 1 by 10 to the power p plus 1 minus the same quantity. Now here you see that 1 by 10 to the power p plus 1 cancels out. So you are left out with ap plus 1 minus np plus 1 divided by 10 to the power p plus 1. So that is ap, because ap plus 1 was recursively defined as ap plus np plus 1 divided by 10 to the power p plus 1. So what have you got? That if you reduce your x by the positive quantity epsilon, then the number which you get, x minus epsilon, is going to be less than ap. You will be able to get such an ap. Therefore, x is the supremum of all this. This is quite satisfactory, because what you were doing was you were going on adding numbers. You had started with n0, then you added n1 by 10 to it, then you added n2 by 10 squared to it, then you added n3 by 10 to the power 3 to it, and so on. So you were getting an increasing uh, sequence of numbers, if you like, and you see that it is actually bounded above by x. And not only that, this is the least upper bound. So in that sense, this x is completely determining this AKs also, and the AKs are also completely determining your x. That is what am I trying to say is that you started with an x and you got the AKs or NKs, and you said that x has that decimal expansion. But I want to somehow say that whatever proof I am giving is going to give a justification for the nomenclature real line. So what does that mean? Recall your previous lectures. You had plotted all the rational numbers on a straight line in a plane. And then you had also shown that there were certain points on the straight line which are not corresponding to any rational number. That led you to extend the number system to real number system. So the proof which you have given right now is telling you how to get the corresponding point on the line given any real number. So given any real number, first you find the line segment whose endpoints are n0 and n0 plus 1, and then inside that line segment you just partition that by in 10 equal parts, and look at the point line segment whose endpoints are n1 and n1 plus 1 divided by 10 both, n1 by 10 and n1 plus 1 divided by 10. So your x will lie in that line segment. So again, do the second approximation. You just partition that small line segment which starts with n1 by 10 and ends at n1 plus 1 by 10 in 10 equal parts, and then find out the little line segment inside it which is described by the endpoints n2 by 10 squared and n2 plus 1 by 10 squared, and look at x in between that, and so on. So in this fashion you are reaching x, reaching a point, sorry, and that point is going to correspond to x. This is what you're trying to say in different words. And conversely, suppose you are given a point on the real line, you just do this process in the opposite direction. That is, if you are given any point on the line, then it will be between one of the line segments defined by n0 and n0 plus 1. So take that n0 as your integral part of the real number which you are trying to find. Similarly, again that point is between some n1 by 10 and n1 plus 1 by 10. So that n1 is giving you the first decimal place in the expansion of x. That is, you want to find x corresponding to that point. So you choose your n0 to be the integral part of x and take n1 to be the first decimal place after the decimal point for that particular real number. Again, look at the point. It should lie between some n2 by 10 squared and n2 plus 1 divided by 10 squared. So that n2 which you find out from the line, that should be giving you the second place after decimal for the corresponding real number. So I think I am able to explain to you that given any point on the real line, you will be able to get a sequence of numbers n0, n1, etc. And that numbers will satisfy all the nice properties, and that number will define the real number n0, point, n1, n2, etc. So every point on the real line will correspond to a real number, and every real number corresponds to a point on the line. So therefore, the nomenclature real line is justified. Okay, so hopefully it is clear till now. And now, even though I have been saying every point, etc., I have not bothered about 0 and less than negative numbers, but that extension is very clear, easy, that the decimal expansion of 0 is given by 0 0.00, etc. And if you have a negative real number, then look at minus of x. So minus of x will be a positive real number, so it has a unique decimal expansion n0, point, n1, n2, etc. So the decimal expansion of x is given as x equal to minus n0, point, n1, n2, etc. Okay, so what we now do is we look at rational numbers and see how their decimal expansion actually looks. So first of all, you assume that your rational number is such that its denominator has prime factors only 2 and 5. So it looks like something like p divided by 2 to the power r, 5 to the power s. Then if you multiply your numerator and denominator both by 2 to the power s, 5 to the power r, then you will get a form of the rational number where your denominator is 10 to the power r plus s. So if you write down your decimal expansion of x, then recall what do you have, that at the r plus sth stage, ar plus s is less than or equal to x is less than ar plus s plus 1 divided by 10 to the power r plus s. So this implies that your ar plus s is the rational number sitting between 2s5rp minus 1 divided by 10 to the power r plus s and 2s5rp divided by 10 to the power r plus s. So and we also know that ar plus s can be expressed as a fraction whose denominator is 10 to the power r plus s. So the only way that can be done once this inequality also has to be satisfied is that ar, see, this is just minus 1, and if you add 1 to it, you are getting this numerator. So the only possibility is that ar plus s has to be equal to 2s5rp divided by 10r plus s. That means x has to be equal to ar plus s. So x is actually equal to n0 plus n1 by 10 plus etc. till nr plus s divided by 10 to the power r plus s. Every other nj is going to be 0. So instead of writing that as an infinite expression, we just write it finitely like this: n0, point, n1, n2, etc. nr plus s. All the decimal places after the r plus s decimal place are going to be 0. So such a decimal is called a terminating decimal. So if you have a rational number whose denominators has prime factors only 2 and 5, then you get a terminating decimal corresponding to that. And the converse is very easy. If you look at a terminating decimal, that is x is equal to n0, point, n1, n2, etc. nk, that means nk plus 1 onwards everything is 0, then your x is actually equal to this. So you take the common denominator 10 to the power k, you will get that x will look like p divided by 10 to the power k for some p in n. So precisely what do you get? That terminating decimals are rational numbers whose denominators have prime factors only 2 and 5. Okay. And what about the other rational numbers? If you have something like p by q, where q has prime factors other than 2 and 5. So q may have prime factor 2 and 5 also, but it also has other prime factors. And suppose n n0 point n1 n2 etc is a decimal expansion of x, then you notice first of all that if you divide p by q, then you will get what? You will get some integral part n naught plus r0 by q, where r0 is the remainder, so it will be one of the integers 0 1 2 etc q minus 1. When you are dividing by q, the remainders can be only these numbers. Again, if you divide x minus n0 into 10 by q, then you will get what? You just get 10 into r naught divided by q, right? So this is x minus n naught is r naught divided by q. So 10 into r naught divided by q, you will again get the integral part of that, which is n1 plus the remainder when you are dividing by q by q. So R1 is going to be any one of these q integers 0, 1, 2, etc. q minus 1. So at each stage, this is what you are doing. You are looking at 10 to the power k plus 1 times x minus rk, x minus ak, sorry. And that will look like 10 times rk divided by q in a similar fashion. So what you will get? You will get some integral part plus rk plus 1 by q. And notice this you are getting by dividing 10 to the power 10 into rk by q. So the remainder which you get will be any of these q numbers 0, 1, 2, etc. q minus 1. So after at most q steps, since there are q remainders when you divide by q 0, 1, 2, etc. till q minus 1, this number will get repeated. So since this will get repeated, your nks which you get after at most q steps, they will all be repeated. So you will get a repetition. That means you will get a recurrence. So what you get is a recurring non-terminating decimal, provided your rational number is such that its denominator has prime factors other than 2 and 5. So if you want to look at the converse of that, that is also very simple. Suppose you have a if you have a recurring non-terminating decimal like this, then it will look like in its most general form, it will look like n0 point n1 n2 etc nk, and then you will have certain digits here nk plus 1 nk plus 2 nk plus m, which will keep on repeating. To denote that, I have put a dot in on the top of nk plus 1 and a dot over nk plus m. So this means that you will have n0 point n1 etc nk, nk plus 1 nk plus 2 etc nk plus m, then nk plus 1 nk plus 2 etc nk plus m, then again nk plus 1 nk plus 2 etc nk plus m, and so on. So you are getting a recurring non-terminating decimal. So the nice part you take out, you look at n0 point n1 to nk, call it y. So what is x minus y? X minus y is just 0.000 k times and then this recurrence from nk plus 1 to nk plus m. So if you write it down, what is this going to be? It is just going to be nk plus 1, nk plus 2, etc. nk plus m divided by 10 to the power k plus m. So that will give you the first k plus mth position, and then plus the same numerator divided by 10k plus m whole squared. So that will give you the next segment, and then divided by 10k plus m whole cube. So that will give you the next segment, and so on. So you will get a series like this. So use the similar argument which I had mentioned earlier. You just take out nk plus 1, nk plus 2, etc. nk plus m. This is a number now. This is not multiplication. This is just a number. So take out this number common outside this series. So you will be left out with summation L equal to 0 to infinity 1 by 10 to the power k plus m whole to the power L minus 1. Now 1 by 10 to the power k plus m, this is also a number between 0 and 1. So this series will actually, why will I get a minus 1 here, is that this series was starting from 1 to infinity. So if I start from 0 to infinity, that means I am adding a 1 here. To the power 0 means you'll get a 1 here. So you also subtract 1. That is why you have got a minus 1 here. So this series is actually a fraction, whatever it looks like. So therefore, whatever you are getting in this big third bracket is a fraction. So that into some integer. So what are you getting? You are getting that x minus y is a rational number. So since x minus y is a rational number and y is a rational number, so x also has to be a rational number. So what you have done is that you have characterized the rational numbers precisely. What? They are those numbers which have either a terminating decimal expansion or a recurring non-terminating decimal expansion. So whatever numbers, we have also learned that every real number has a decimal expansion. So whatever numbers do not satisfy this decimal expansion cannot be rational numbers. So we have precisely stated that also, that the irrational numbers, that is the real numbers which are not rational numbers, are those numbers which have non-recurring, non-terminating decimal expansion. So this is very satisfactory, and therefore decimal expansions are what we will use. We will not go into any other expansions. So hopefully I have been able to explain to you what we wish to do here. And let us now stop our